It was a calm, sun-drenched afternoon by the edge of the Wazara River, a vast and muddy stretch of water that wound through the rural plains like a shimmering brown snake. The air was heavy with humidity, and dragonflies skimmed lazily above the ripples. On the far bank, a herd of goats grazed peacefully on patches of wild grass, their soft bleating harmonizing with the distant chirps of weaver birds. Among them was a slender, cream-colored mother goat named Lela. Her coat glowed under the sunlight, and her twin kids danced around her in carefree circles. She was a gentle creature, but lately she had grown bold, perhaps too bold for her own good. The villagers had often warned her owner, an old herdsman named Tarek, about the dangers that lived beneath that calm surface. The Wazara was home to one of nature's oldest predators, the African giant catfish, an ancient creature of enormous size and deceptive patience. It had been spotted before, rising from the depths to snatch birds and small animals that ventured too close. Local fishermen whispered stories of its power, claiming it could pull down a full-grown dog with a single lunge. Tarek had heard all the tales, but he never truly believed them. He thought the people exaggerated, that fear had made the fish larger in their minds than in reality. But that day, as the sun hung low and the air thickened with the smell of wet earth, nature decided to prove him wrong. Her kids bleated from a distance, sensing something wrong. Then came another sound, a slow, gurgling swirl as the surface rippled in widening circles. The villagers nearby, washing clothes of the shallows, paused and looked up in the haze of the afternoon light. Something dark moved beneath the surface, something enormous and deliberate. Before anyone could shout a warning, a violent surge erupted from the river. A massive, dark gray body broke through the muddy water, its whiskered face, pale belly, and gaping mouth flashing for an instant. The mother goat screamed, her legs flailing, as the catfish's powerful jaws clamped around her hind leg and dragged her down. The river exploded into chaos. Water churned white with foam as Lela kicked and twisted, crying out in terror. Her kids ran in frantic circles, bleating so loudly that even the villagers across the field heard them. Tarek, who had been repairing a fence nearby, dropped everything and sprinted toward the noise. "Lela!" he shouted, his heart pounding as he tore through the grass. He could see her struggling, half in, half out of the water, her terrified eyes wide and pleading. The great fish thrashed, its massive tail beating the river into fury. Each time she tried to pull free, the current dragged her deeper. Tarek waded in without thinking, shouting for help as the water surged up to his waist. Within moments, several villagers came running. Among them was the local rescue volunteer, Captain Musa, a retired ranger who now led the community's animal rescue team. Musa was a broad-shouldered man in his late 50s, his skin weathered by years in the sun, and his eyes sharp with instinct. Musa was a broad-shouldered man in his late 50s, his skin weathered by years in the sun, and his eyes sharp with instinct. "Give me the hooks and bring the boat, now." The villagers scrambled, shouting orders to each other. Two men grabbed a small wooden canoe, while another fetched an old fishing spear from a hut nearby. The air was filled with panic, splashing, and the shrill cries of the young goats. By now, Lela was nearly submerged. Her front legs clawed desperately at the mud, dragging herself up inch by inch. But every pull was countered by the invisible force below. Tarek tried to grab her horns, but the slick mud made it impossible. "Hold on, girl," he cried, his voice breaking. Captain Musa leaped into the canoe as soon as it touched the water, pushing off with his foot. His two assistants followed, their faces pale but determined. The boat rocked as they paddled hard toward the disturbance. Every second mattered. The river's current was strong, and the catfish was powerful enough to drown an adult man. As they neared, Musa could see the creature's dark silhouette twisting just below the surface. It was enormous, at least 6 feet long, with whiskers as thick as vines and a head like a boulder. "Steady," Musa barked. "Don't spook it. We have one chance." He motioned to the others to position a rope around Lela's body while he aimed the spear into the murky swirl. He waited for a sign, for the brief moment when the catfish surfaced to readjust its grip. Then, with one swift, precise motion, he plunged the spear downward. The water erupted again, and a low, guttural roar of bubbles rose to the surface as the spear struck flesh. The moment Captain Musa's spear pierced the muddy water, the river seemed to come alive with fury. The giant catfish thrashed violently, sending waves splashing over the rescue boat. The air filled with the sound of roaring water and desperate shouts. Tarek, still at the river's edge, clung to the slippery mud bank, screaming encouragements to Lella while his heart hammered against his ribs. The old herdsman could see only flashes of silver and gray below the surface, a monstrous body twisting, churning up clouds of silt that turned the water to chocolate. Hold her steady, Musa yelled over the chaos, his knuckles white around the wooden shaft of the spear. The fish was far stronger than he'd expected. Each time it jerked, it nearly pulled the weapon, and Musa himself, overboard. Ropes! Now, he barked. One of his men, Asif, tossed the coiled rope toward Lella's neck, while another, Kareem, steadied the canoe. The frightened goat bleated weakly, her strength fading fast. The rope missed the first time, landing in the swirling water. Again! Musa shouted. Kareem threw it once more, this time managing to loop it around Lella's shoulders. Got it! Asif cried, pulling hard to tighten the knot. Pull her in. Musa ordered. The men heaved with all their might, but the catfish refused to release its prey. The surface boiled as the beast dove deeper, dragging the canoe sideways. Water rushed over the edge, soaking everyone inside. For a tense few seconds, it seemed the rescue might fail. The river too strong, the creature too fierce. Then, suddenly, the spear lodged deeper and the catfish recoiled, thrashing violently in pain. Musa seized a moment. Now, pull, he shouted. The villagers on the bank joined in, grabbing the rope and forming a human chain. Tarek, mud up to his knees, pulled harder than anyone, his eyes wide with desperation. Inch by inch, they gained ground. Lella's body began to rise from the murk, her hind leg still trapped in the monster's jaws. Her eyes rolled in terror, and foam gathered around her mouth. Don't let go! Musa roared. He braced his foot against the canoe's edge and twisted the spear handle, trying to wound the fish enough to make it retreat. The catfish let out a deep, guttural vibration, a sound that seemed to echo through the entire riverbed. Then, with one last convulsive surge, it released the goat and vanished into the depths, leaving behind a swirling crater of mud and blood. The sudden stillness was almost shocking. For a heartbeat, no one moved or spoke. Then Tarek let out a cry of relief. She's free. Lella's free, he shouted, tears streaming down his face. The villagers erupted in cheers, and Captain Musa, drenched and trembling, exhaled heavily. Get her out of the water! Quickly, he said, his voice hoarse but steady. They pulled Lella to the bank with the combined force of half a dozen men. Her body was limp, coated in river muck. A deep gash ran across her hind leg, where the catfish's teeth had sunk in. She's breathing, Asif said, checking her side. But she's weak. Musa nodded grimly. We'll have to clean that wound right away, he said, motioning for the first aid kit. The villagers brought it from the truck parked nearby, part of the rescue team's gear for emergencies. Musa cleaned the wound with antiseptic and wrapped it tightly with gauze, working quickly and efficiently despite his trembling hands. She'll live, he murmured, if we keep her warm and away from the river. Tarek fell to his knees beside her, stroking her muddy fur. Thank you, he whispered, his voice breaking. I thought I'd lost her. Musa placed a hand on the old man's shoulder. You didn't lose her, he said softly. But let this be a warning, my friend. That fish isn't just a story. It's a predator. You keep your herd back from the water from now on. Tarek nodded solemnly. I will. I swear I will. The river, now eerily calm again, reflected the orange glow of the late afternoon sun. The villagers stood in silence, staring at the water that had nearly claimed another life. The surface looked innocent, but everyone there knew what lurked beneath. The catfish was still alive, wounded, perhaps enraged, and it would not soon forget the battle. It's not over, Musa said quietly to himself. That beast has been here for decades. It'll be back. As dusk fell, the rescue team loaded their equipment back into the truck. The exhausted goat lay on a bed of hay in the back. Her kids nestled close to her, bleating softly. Tark rode beside her, one hand resting gently on her neck. The drive back to the village was silent, except for the hum of the engine and the sound of distant frogs beginning their night song. Musa sat in the front seat, staring out the window, lost in thought. He had seen many rescues in his life. Snakes, crocodiles, even lions. But this one felt different. There was something ancient about that fish, something that didn't belong in a small village river. He wondered if this was a sign that the balance between humans, animals, and nature was shifting again. When they reached the village, lanterns glowed along the pathways, and people gathered to meet them. The news had spread fast. The careless mother goat had been saved, and the giant catfish had been wounded. Children clapped and cheered as the team carried Lela into a small barn where she would recover. The local healer arrived with herbal ointments, and soon the smell of crushed leaves filled the air. For now, the danger was over, but the story had only just begun. The villagers would talk about the event for days. How the heroic rescue team saved a mother goat from a monster lurking beneath the muddy waves. By the next morning, the village buzzed with whispers about the terrifying event at the Wazara River. Every conversation, from the tea stalls to the market square, circled back to one thing: the monstrous catfish that had nearly swallowed a goat alive. Children gathered under the old banyan tree, retelling the story with wide eyes and dramatic gestures, while elders shook their heads and muttered prayers. The heroic rescue team, led by Captain Musa, had become local heroes overnight. Yet despite the praise, Musa felt no pride, only unease. He had spent a restless night, replaying the scene in his mind, hearing the splash, feeling the pull of the river, and seeing the shadow of that ancient fish vanish into the murk. It wasn't just a rescue gone right. It was a warning from nature itself. When Musa stepped outside his small home at dawn, the morning fog still clung to the ground, curling like smoke around the village huts. He found Tark waiting near the gate, holding a bowl of goat's milk as an offering of thanks. "She's alive, Captain," the old herdsman said, his voice trembling with gratitude. "Lela's eating again. The healer says she'll walk soon." Musa nodded, accepting the milk with a tired smile. "That's good news, old friend. But I'm afraid our troubles aren't over yet." Tark frowned. "What do you mean?" Musa looked toward the river in the distance, where mist drifted above the surface like a ghost. "That creature won't disappear so easily. The wound we gave it, it might make it angry. And when animals are angry, they change. They become unpredictable." The two men walked together toward the riverbank, their boots squelching in the wet earth. The ground bore fresh signs of disturbance: crushed reeds, torn grass, and a trail of deep impressions leading into the water, evidence of a struggle that had taken place just hours earlier. The current looked peaceful now, but the men could sense the lurking power beneath. Tark crossed himself instinctively. "Maybe we should hunt it down, end it before it harms someone else," he suggested. Musa shook his head. "No, the river belongs to it. We'd be foolish to turn a rescue mission into a revenge hunt. Besides, that catfish is older than both of us. It's seen floods, droughts, and storms. If we interfere too much, we might upset the whole ecosystem." Still, the thought of such a creature living so close unsettled the villagers. Later that day, a small crowd gathered outside Musa Station, demanding answers. "Our children play near that river," one woman cried. "What if it attacks again?" another shouted. Musa raised his hands to calm them. "Listen to me," he said firmly. "We've already contacted the wildlife department. They're sending a research team to assess the situation. Until then, no one should go near the water. No fishing, no washing, no bathing. The Wazara River is off limits until further notice." The villagers murmured among themselves, some frightened, others skeptical, but Musa's reputation as a ranger carried weight. Slowly, the crowd dispersed, leaving him alone with his thoughts. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the acacia trees, Musa sat on the steps of the station, flipping through his old field journal. He had documented hundreds of rescues over the years: snakes trapped in homes, eagles tangled in wires, elephants fallen into pits. But never a case like this. He turned to a blank page and began to write. November 2nd, Wazara River. Encountered African giant catfish of unusual size and aggression, possibly an old territorial male. Attacked a domestic goat. Behavior indicates either hunger due to ecosystem imbalance or defensive reaction to encroachment. He paused, tapping his pen against the paper. Must investigate upstream pollution levels and fish migration patterns. He closed a notebook slowly, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing on his shoulders. Meanwhile, at Tarek's farm, the scene was much calmer. The mother goat, Lela, lay resting on a bed of straw. Her twin kids snuggled against her, occasionally nudging her belly as if to reassure themselves she was real. The villagers came by in small groups to see her, leaving bits of fodder and murmuring blessings. "She's lucky," said one woman, touching the goat's wrapped leg. "That fish must have been sent by fate to teach us all a lesson." Tarek nodded solemnly. "Yes," he said, "a lesson I'll never forget." He had moved his herd farther inland, building a temporary fence near the mango grove. From now on, he vowed, not a single hoof of his animals would touch that river again. Night fell quietly, and for a few hours, peace returned to the village. But around midnight, a fisherman named Bilal, who lived near the riverbank, heard something strange. It was a deep, resonant thump, like the sound of a drum echoing underwater. Curious and half asleep, he stepped outside with a lantern. The river glistened in the moonlight, calm and glassy. Then, without warning, something massive broke the surface with a slow, deliberate rise. Bilal froze. The creature's dorsal fin sliced through the water, followed by the glint of two enormous eyes reflecting the lantern light. The catfish was back, wounded but alive, and bigger than he'd remembered. It lingered near the shore for a few seconds, then sank silently beneath the surface, leaving only ripples that shimmered like silver rings in the dark. By dawn, the news had spread again. Bilal's account stirred panic. The villagers gathered once more, demanding stronger measures. "It's hunting again!" someone shouted. "We can't live in fear of a fish," others yelled. Musa listened patiently, but his mind was already working on a plan. This wasn't just about one animal anymore. It was about balance, survival, and respect for nature's power. He decided that the rescue team would return to the river, not to kill, but to study and protect. They needed to understand what had caused the giant catfish to attack in the first place. Something he sensed was wrong in the ecosystem, and unless they found out what, more lives, human or animal, might be at risk. As the sun set behind acacia trees, Captain Musa sat on the steps of the station, flipping through an old, worn field journal, pages glowing in the warm golden light. His expression was thoughtful and serious, reflecting the weight of responsibility. Across the village, Tarek's farm was calm. Lela, cream-colored and bandaged on her hind leg, rested on a bed of straw. Her twin kids snuggled against her. Villagers approached quietly, leaving fodder and murmuring blessings. In the background, mango trees and a temporary fence marked Tarek's precautionary measures. Later, Bilal, the fisherman, stood near the moonlit Wazara River, lantern in hand, frozen in awe as the wounded giant catfish broke the glassy surface, dorsal fins slicing to the water and enormous eyes reflecting light, before sinking silently beneath ripples shimmering like silver rings. The scene captured a blend of calm, vigilance, and underlying menace, as the river and its predator remained a looming threat. Captain Musa, rescue leader broad-shouldered, tan-skinned, khaki uniform, seated on station steps, flipping journal, thoughtful expression, pen in hand. Tarek, old goat herder thin, gray beard, loose white shower camise turban, standing or watching farm, solemn, protective. Lela, mother goat cream-colored, resting, hind leg bandaged, twin kids snuggling, on straw bed. Bilal, fisherman witness thin, tanned, faded red shirt, rolled up trousers, holding lantern, eyes wide, frozen in awe. Giant catfish, antagonist creature dark gray, massive, dorsal fin slicing surface, eyes glinting in lantern light, wounded but alive, ripples in moonlit river. Environment: acacia trees silhouetted against sunset, mango grove and temporary fence, Wazara River calm under moonlight, village huts in fog, soft glowing lanterns, Peaceful farm atmosphere with lingering tension. Mood and lighting. Sunset golden light. Moonlit reflections. Calm but tense. Vigilance, awe, and subtle menace. A sharp cry interrupted them. One of the villagers, Bilal again, came running down the path, panting heavily. "It's here! Near the bend!" he gasped, pointing downstream. Its surface by the rocks. Instantly, Musa grabbed his radio. "Team B, move south. Stay on the bank. No one enters the water." The rescue truck roared to life, bumping along the dirt track toward the bend. As they approached, they saw a swirl of bubbles near the shallows, and for a moment a great fish's head broke the surface. Massive, scarred, its whiskers dragging like ropes. Cameras clicked. Rafi recorded the sighting, his hands shaking. The catfish turned slowly, revealing a long, healing gash on its flank where Musa's spear had struck. "That's our proof," Amara said. "Same individual. It survived the wound." The creature submerged again with a sluggish roll, leaving the team staring at concentric ripples. "It's injured but alive," Musa said, "which means it's unpredictable." He radioed the others to pull back. "No more bait lines. We don't provoke it." Turning to Amara, he added, "Can we relocate it?" She sighed. "We'd need tranquilizer equipment, nets, boats, and at least 20 people. That's a national-level operation, not a village one." Musa ran a hand through his wet hair. "Then we contain the area until the department decides." That evening they camped near the bank, setting lanterns in a circle and keeping a constant watch. The rhythmic croak of frogs mingled with the low hum of generators. Musa sat by the fire, reviewing notes by flashlight. Across from him, Amara boiled water for tea. "You've seen many rescues," she said softly. "Why does this one trouble you so much?" Musa stared into the flames. "Because it's not just a rescue. It's a reminder. We keep expanding our fields, dumping waste into the streams, pushing animals out of their homes. Then we call them monsters when they fight back." He looked toward the dark river. "But it's us who forget boundaries first." Amara nodded silently. The fire crackled, throwing orange reflections onto their tired faces. Somewhere downstream, something large splashed, slow, heavy, deliberate. Everyone froze. The sound came again, closer this time, followed by a deep bubbling gurgle. "Lights on," Musa ordered. Flood lamps flared to life, illuminating the muddy water. For a long moment, nothing moved. Then, just beyond the beam, two faint, glimmering eyes blinked once and vanished. They stayed awake the rest of the night, the sense of unseen presence thick as the river mist. When dawn finally broke, Musa wrote a single line in his notebook. "The Wazara River watches back."